Here are my trainer tips for the Romanian deadlift, or more specifically, the trap bar RDL. So we're gonna focus on two things. One, the purpose of the movement, and two, how to do the movement itself. I think the purpose is important because a lot of people lose sight of what we're trying to accomplish. The RDL is an accessory movement. When you compare that to a primary movement or a regular deadlift, the purpose of these accessory movements is to help improve the primary movements. Okay, as such, we're not trying to achieve a 1 rep max in accessory movements. So this is not about how much weight you can lift. And it's also important, obviously, to have good form with regular deadlifts, but what we're really gonna dial into is how this movement feels. When you understand that we're trying to increase a regular deadlift using this, it's a simplistic way of looking at it, but then you begin to realize you don't need to lift a lot of weight for this to be effective. So the second part to this is how to do it properly. Biggest complaint or biggest concern I hear is my back hurts. I don't feel my hamstrings. This is a result of you going beyond what I refer to as your functional end range of motion. So what's important to note between a full range of motion or a functional range of motion is that a functional range of motion is how far you should go. For instance, if I perform the Romanian deadlift all the way down to the floor, which by the way is an arbitrary range of motion, I am going beyond my functional range of motion, although the range of motion itself, a full range of motion, is going down to the floor. So I don't want to confuse things too much, but there's the ability to go to the floor and there's the should I go to the floor. All right, so your functional end range is going to depend on you. The second thing to this is your hand placement. So your hand placement is going to help improve where the center of balance or where that bar goes. So let's have a look at these two together. You get set up just like we would do in a regular deadlift. You want your ring finger knuckles in line with your ankles, which is in line with the sleeve of the trap bar. Once you're set up there, you're gonna have your feet narrower. Once you're grabbing, you're gonna have your feet narrower. I like to have my feet hip width apart, right? So essentially straight up and down. And it's almost gonna feel like they're too narrow, but this is where you should be. We wanna be straight up and down. Now, the big difference from the Romanian deadlift and the Romanian deadlift and the regular deadlift is what happens with your knees. So we're gonna have a soft bend here, and then as you descend, okay, you maintain that soft bend, but you're gonna push your hips further back. When you compare that to a regular deadlift, your knees are bending as you hinge as well. And this is an important distinction. So now we come back to this RDL. We go into our hinge, the knuckles, the ring finger knuckles stay down the sides of my thighs. Okay, you do not want them to drift forward. As soon as your hands drift forwards or your weight moves forwards, you're gonna deload your hamstrings and you're gonna feel more in your back. So I wanna keep those hands going down the sides of my legs, down towards those ankle bones. And as I continue to hinge, I'm paying attention to the tension in my hamstrings, okay? So I'm feeling right now, I'm flexing through the hips, so I'm hinging down. I feel the stretch in the hamstrings. When I feel maximal stretch, I come back up. That is your functional range of motion. It's not about going down and then right to the ground. If you go beyond your functional range of motion, there's a couple things. One, back to point number one, you've missed the purpose of this exercise, okay? And point number two, your form is compromised, which means you are gonna increase the risk of injury to your spine, okay? Plus you're not gonna get stronger for the deadlift. What I want you to think about, think of the hamstrings as an elastic band. As you begin to descend, you feel that band stretch out, then you're gonna find that end range. It's almost like you can't go any further, or if you do go further, it's gonna snap, and then you come back up. Now, as I'm doing this, some more advanced points. So let's go over the first one. I've got my setup, I'm at the top, assume that's all good, my feet are narrow, my hands go down the sides of my legs, okay, not in front. I feel the tension in the back of the legs, but as I'm doing this, I'm also screwing my feet into the ground. So think about my knees rotating outwards. As I do this, okay, I keep my big toe, little toe, and heel on the ground. Okay, note I'm usually doing deadlifts barefoot, and this is gonna help me feel the floor better. I get to the ground and I come back up. Okay, repeat this. Go slowly. You don't need to go very fast here. And when you get to the top, don't do this extra little extension at the top. You just need to come to the top. So think about squeezing your butt at the top, not about pulling the shoulder blades back. Okay, I'm squeezing the butt at the top, and then I come back down. You want to avoid trying to get into this hyperextended position. Side note, I'm going on a tangent. This is what happens with bad kettlebell swings. When you get that high end and then you get that little bit of extra extension, you're gonna compress the discs. So let's bring this all together here. The summary, this is an accessory movement. The goal here is to help primary movements, such as the regular deadlift. That means it's not about getting a 1 rep max. You are gonna control the difficulty of this movement by point number 2, working on form, which is feeling the tension in your hamstring, only going to your functional end range of motion, not down to the ground, which is arbitrary. Now, if you feel like you are able to get to the ground very easily and you have not completely stretched out the hamstrings, try going into a low bar position. If you feel like even in the low bar position, you can get down to the ground, and just be certain about this, then you can go into what's called a deficit, where you get yourself up on plates. Do the same thing, but now you're gonna have a little bit more range of motion. Again, it's only about feeling this in the hamstrings. It's not about how low you can go, okay? Understand this, do this properly. You're not gonna hurt yourself, you're gonna get stronger, and you're gonna improve your deadlift.